3. Hello guys, it's me Shamsudeen Shaibu. I'm here to introduce Chef Will Roof. He's a chef educator and instructor at Northampton Community College, NTC, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. He's a culinary arts program alumni and a key figure in the management of the school's teaching restaurant. So as you see me here, I'm going to ask him questions about sustainable eating. So let's start. Okay, Chef Will, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay, I have a series of questions about sustainable eating. So first of all, what is sustainable eating?
Sustainable eating to me is eating things that our environment is able to give us without harming itself, or we are able to take from our environment without harming our environment. Different kinds of foods, I think eating more vegetables, eating more things that come naturally and are seasonable in your area, I think is kind of sustainable eating. Also avoiding foods that take or cause a large impact in our environment and maybe cause some detrimental effects to our environment.
Sounds great. So another question is, why is sustainable important to the environment and human health?
Sustainability is important just because the idea of sustainability is something that we can keep running for a long time, if not forever. And I think it's very important to understand that we live our lives, but we are also part of a long chain of humans that come before us and come after us. So we need to make sure that we are doing responsible things and interacting with our environment to leave the planet the same or better than we found it. So having good eating practices is very good for the environment, but it's also very, very good for the people who come after us, our sons and daughters, but also our grandchildren and people we will never meet, to leave the planet in a better shape than we found it.
Okay, another thing is, so what are the environmental impact of different types of food production? For example, like meat, dairy, plant-based foods.
So I'll start with meat. Production of meat is very, very stressful for the environment because it takes a lot of resources to create the meat that we eat, especially since it's a small portion of what our body needs. Our body needs a lot more things that come from the land, not just from livestock. So it's very difficult to supply enough people with the meat that they want, maybe not what they need, but what they want, because people want big steaks. This is not really sustainable long term because it's very, very difficult to have this much going on. You also have the environmental aspects of you have waste products from the animals and the livestock. You also have the resources that go into feeding these animals and the space that it takes to help facilitate their growth. So sometimes it's very important to understand that when you eat steak, you're not just eating food, you're eating food that ate somebody else's food, because if I eat a vegetable, it's delicious. We love vegetables. But I have to feed my vegetables to a cow for them to get big, and then I eat the cow that ate my vegetables. It probably would be more intelligent for us to eat only a small amount of meat, but a lot more vegetables and a lot more grains. Because why make a middleman? Why not just eat the things that come from the earth by themselves? So they also have a lot of livestock produces a lot of methane gas. This is a greenhouse gas, so that affects global climate change, which is something that really affects the third world much more than it affects the first world. So maybe in America we don't see as many threats to our environment, but definitely in other places it's a very, very big issue. Also, there's a lot of waste when it comes to production of livestock and packaging of meats and the long travel distances that it takes to get the meat to consumers. So a lot of big impacts on our environment.
So the real question is, like, how people know that this is organic food and this is not organic food, and what kind of food are people supposed to eat so that they can grow well?
So our government in America does a very good job of putting packaging, like labeling that says it's organic or it's not organic. And to get this packaging, you need to go through processes of applications and interviews and submitting paperwork. It's very, very good. But the best way to do it, honestly, is to buy your food as close to your home as possible and not get food that was brought from thousands of miles away to your place, because then you can actually talk to the people. Like, the best thing for me is in the summertime, I go to farmers to buy my stuff. I don't go to the supermarket. I want to go to the farmers, right? So then I can ask them questions. What are you using in your farm? Are you using a lot of pesticides? Are you using things like Roundup that could be potentially hazardous for us? But if I can talk to the people, it's much easier for the conversation to kind of get started. It's easier that way.
Sure, sounds good. So last but not least, the last question is, what are some of the effective ways to reduce food waste and how to minimize food?
So I would say there's many things that you can do, but it depends on what position in the chain that you are in. I think farmers, they should do their part to reduce their waste, but when they have food that they grow that necessarily isn't the best, you can use that for compost, which creates more nutrients, and you can use that on your crops next season. But you can also try to sell some of your carrots or things that like don't look perfect. You sell them as what we call seconds. So they might not be beautiful, but they still have great nutritional content. Sometimes people are guilty of only buying the most perfect carrots, right? But we should be buying the ones that don't look quite right. And then if you are a consumer and you're buying these things, making sure that you have a really good set of tools to process them. If you use a peeler to peel your carrots and you're peeling them very deep, you lose a lot of the carrot. That's not so great. A lot of people just throw their food scraps into the garbage and then it goes into a landfill and it's not good. You can use it for compost, put it in your garden, you can feed it to chickens or pets if you have chickens in your backyard. And then as consumers, when we go out to restaurants, it's important to ask them what they're doing too. How are they treating their things? How are they interacting with their local economy and local farmers and local livestock? And also ask them what they do with their waste. Some people say, oh, we just throw it away. We shouldn't support those businesses as much as we should support businesses that have a plan for their waste. This will allow much more sustainable relationships between consumer, producer, and users. So I think that's probably the best way.
Sure. So right now, what are your final words for students and the whole wide world people, how they're supposed to live their life sustainably according to how they eat their food?
I think that understanding your relationship with food is the first step, and then trying to do as least harm as you can. I mean, I think that's a good thing in life, is to do as much good with as little harm as possible, but it's the same thing with things like vegetables and livestock. I think it's important to make sure that you talk to the people who are growing your food, finding out where it comes from, and only eating things that you think are probably good for the whole world or the whole benefit of your community.
Sure. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.